Welcome to Nourishing the Mother, an inspired conversation space between Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner on the journey of motherhood through the common thread of parenting, relationship, and sexuality as a path to consciousness.
We keep our conversations honest, our experiences real, and our philosophies exploratory. We believe that in order to raise incredible humans, we first have to raise ourselves. We know that in order to rock the family, you've got to nourish the mother. If you are here, you care about paving a path of conscious and intentional motherhood, connected with yourself and your gifts, and also illuminating your children in theirs so we may raise more whole humans who can impact this world in a more humane way.
If you desire to integrate your learnings practically and supportively, head on over to bridgetwood.life or julietenner.love to go deeper. And for all live-streamed pre-release podcasts and all our free content, head over to our free Facebook group, Nourishing the Mother with Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner. We are Julie Tenner and Bridget Wood, and we are so grateful you're here.
Hello and welcome to Nourishing the Mother. I'm Bridget Wood.
And I'm Julie Tenner. And today's podcast is our top 3 tips for managing your expectations on yourself, which Bridgie and I would say is one of the most corrosive aspects or tendencies of mothers in motherhood.
Yeah, it's huge. And even as you're talking, I'm thinking, because there's so much self-flagellation in motherhood. Yeah.
So much. So what we want to do is offer you a podcast that is 3 tips that are concise and like a beautiful journal or workbook that you can follow really beautifully when you find yourself spiraling because of the expectations right now. I mean, so much that we know out in the world, both spiritually and through various relationship people, coaches, research will tell you that the cause of your suffering is the expectation and the falling short or the fall from grace that you experience. So the expectation is the problem, not your experience.
Yeah, or not the other person necessarily. It's, it's like, what hurt you? Oh, my expectations hurt me.
Yeah.
It's so crushing, right? Because we want to have, dream big and we want to have high expectations of ourselves, but also sometimes those are the very things that undo us.
Oh, man, so much. So we want to make this really succinct for you. So step number 1 on managing your own expectations on yourself, because as you know, this podcast is Nourishing the Mother. We know you've got to nourish you for this gig to work. So number 1 is actually recognizing that you're running an expectation on yourself and that because of that, your perception is that you're falling short.
Yeah. And it's funny because I kind of love that we have these expectations because they help us to, live a life that's aligned with our values and to ask more of ourselves and our healing. But at the same time, we can very often attach to the impossible or expect ourselves to be spaciousness all of the time or not get really angry or be more patient, all of these things that are beautiful things, right, to cultivate, but also cannot be cultivated 100% of the time. And so what then happens is we fall from this impossible grace that we're trying to be, and then the self-flagellation in inward rage or inward kind of beating up of self happens.
Yes.
And you spiral.
Yes. So when you find yourself beating yourself internally, black and blue, or flagellating and whipping your own back to do more, work harder, it's because you're not doing enough. So just do more, be better.
Just try harder.
Right. Any version of that. When you recognize that you're there, and there's a very condensed energy about it. It feels very frustrating, almost like you're irritated at being in your own skin.
Yeah.
Then the invitation that we have here is you can't change anything until you have awareness. So you just need to spend a little minute going, hang on a minute. when I'm here and it feels like this, it's because I'm comparing myself to something or someone. That someone can be real, or that someone can be a complete fabrication that we've made up. So we just want to recognize I'm here, hold the horses to stop the spiral, just like, whoa, slow down, recognize that you're running an expectation, not that this is a truth. So step one, recognize what your symptoms are of you running an expectation and start to pull yourself up in them.
And a good kind of indication that you're in this spiral is also the somatic feedback you're getting. Like you might find your breath quicken, you might find that your body is like hot, or there's a heat, you know, kind of almost an intensity to it. You may be like furiously doing things as a way to try to do something with that energy. And so the like cooling down and the pause with that breath and like that kind of inventory of like, what's my thought process going like to lead me here? Can just be like putting the brakes on. Another good way to know you're there is when you are really polarized and in, you know, making somebody something, or you're really black and white with your view. It's just really beautiful to understand, I'm here with this story.
And actually, as you were saying, as you're saying that, I'm like, you know, one of my symptoms of this is that I start like pinging it out at Nick. Like I'll start going, you're not good enough. You don't do this good enough. Like I might not even physically say those things, but under the surface of my skin, as I'm looking at him and observing him and having interactions with him, they're all coming from this like narky, like, I'm doing everything, you're doing nothing, and nothing's good. Because when I feel unworthy, I will make that he's unworthy.
Which we all do. We either do it to our children or we do it to our partner. We will do this to someone close to us.
So even as you were saying that, I was like, there's another symptom for me that I pattern interrupt. Now I recognize when I'm doing that, I'm like, this isn't truth. This isn't about Nick at all.
It's all about me. It's so funny because I'm the same actually. And I notice when I'm like, I've been like this the last few days with my husband who's exhausted, and I'm like, God, just like get some sleep better. Like, you know, or like
disappointing.
Come on, like just do something more, which is really how I feel about myself.
Yes, exactly. Right. What I'm saying.
He's just like the place I get to throw it. So I become more conscious of like, that's me. I'm feeling like that toward myself, and it's easier to put it there. And go, okay. Same thing with our kids. Like same thing, like we're going to make this quick, but this morning my toddler was screaming at the top of her voice at like 6:30 in the morning for more milk. Right before I could feel a rising sense of anger at my husband, just because, just because. And I didn't speak it. And so she did. So also just noticing how the family dynamic is arranging itself around you to help you see your stuff.
So beautiful. I really love that you said that. For me, it'll be my teenage daughter.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, she gets a narky, bitchy, dark kind of energy, which, funnily enough, I actually find quite humorous, and I'm very happy to be around it. And it irritates the absolute crap out of my husband. He's like, he can't even be around it. Like he does his best, but it's very condensed. You know, he's like, you know, I'm here.
It's so great.
Like, you're so funny.
It's so great to normalize this because we all have our thing. And when we can go, this is my thing. I know I do this thing. And we get to shine a light on it and go like kind of make friends with it. And go, hello, habitual pattern. How do we want to play this today?
Yes, totally. So number one is you cannot change anything you're not aware of. So first off, work out what your blueprint is and start catching yourself in it. Then if you want to, what you can do is either of these next two steps, which are quite mental processes. And what Bridget also offered in there, which I hope you caught, was also coming back to a somatic process. So can I cool this? And I would say there's probably two ways to go about that. You can either decide, if you've got the spaciousness, to move deeper into that feeling. How irritated and irritating can I really be, and really move that through and out of my body in a cathartic way? Or, I haven't got the time and the space right now. How can I cool my jets and come back into regulation and come back to what's really going on for me?
Yeah. Yeah, because you have those two options depending on your time and capacity.
Right. Totally. So step number 2 is, once you recognize, oh, okay, I am running expectations and I am putting myself below them, like I am in the pit looking up at this thing going, I'm not that, it's not that, this isn't that. So therefore, this is shit, I'm not doing enough, whatever. So you've minimized yourself and put yourself down in relation to this thing, person, construction that is so much better. So you want to recognize who's on the pedestal.
And actually drill down to this, because we did a bit of an exercise on this reimagining motherhood recently in Recalibrate. And we realized that for many women, they had created not even a real person, but like the embodiment of like 4 different women in their life wrapped up into one person. So of course you're always going to be in the pit in comparison to that, because nobody is that thing all of the time. So even just having the awareness of, I'm comparing myself to that thing in her and this thing in that friend of mine, and that thing in that lady that I saw down the street. And I'm never going to be all of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's part of it, to kind of balance yourself, but also then look at, all right, so what am I then not seeing? What am I, why am I attaching to this as the right way? What's the other side to this? Because everything, even the things we think are amazing, the traits we think are amazing, also have 2 sides.
Yes.
But we don't want to see that side because we infatuate with what we think is great.
I just wonder if we just take a hot little second just to slow that down, because if you're a long-time listener, you will have followed along. If you're in our spaces, you would have followed along. And if you are not either of those things, welcome to this space. We don't want to leave you behind.
Yeah, I love that you've done that, because we have a tendency to kind of run away with these concepts. So that's great. We'll slow it right down a little.
Let's talk about, okay, first off, construction. Who is it that I'm comparing myself to right now? So you could ask, where did I learn that? Who is it? What are the traits or the ways that I'm saying I should be is the right way to be? Who is that? Is it a construction of several people? Is it a total fantasy human? Is it one human that I know? Like, just who is it? And then deciding if that is, one, reasonable. Is it actually even possible, or is it a total fantasy because it's a collection of all of these different people? Or 2, as Bridget's saying, can I balance this out? Can I balance the human if it's a real person that I'm comparing myself to? Can I balance this moment or emotion and say, where is the other side that balances this out? Because when I'm, I don't know, resentful and not enjoying parenting, in my mind, I mean, I can say this is what happens for me, I automatically compare myself to the idealized present conscious parent that I have in my mind, who would be present and happy to be with her children all of the time and listen to every one of their needs. Well, one, that's not possible, because I'm human, not soul or robot. And 2, I'm getting a heck ton of benefits, as are my children, in the moments where I'm also the opposite of that thing I'm holding as an ideal, which is what Bridget's talking about.
Yeah. Thank you for breaking that down. Yeah.
Oh, no. I was like, do you have anything to add to that? So we just want to do that whole just slight equilibration on bringing down the person on the pedestal and going, is this even real? What is the other side to this human that I'm not seeing? Where do I display those traits and this human doesn't? Like, just starting to balance in your own perception that, and at the same time bringing up your current reality as it's not all bad. You've gone, pedestal is right, where I am is shit. And it's not true. Neither of those things are true. That's what Bridget says with polarization, right? She's saying it's not true. We've gone black, white, right, wrong. It's not true. We don't live in a world truly at its core that separates.
The human construction of the world that's based on moral language is built like that.
Yes.
And so we are indoctrinated with that from birth, pretty much.
even before that. So that's why having a process like this is so helpful, because then we get to allows us to get outside morality, so that we can see wider. So that we can kind of like, polish those lenses of perception a little bit more, so we can see, actually, it's not as black and white as I thought it was. And my fundamental way of seeing the world is not accurate. And from that place, we then get to have more choice. Right. So that is step number 2. This podcast is brought to you by the offers we currently have on in our world. So over at bridgetwood.life, you can find out more about the Reimagining Motherhood membership. It's the place where conscious parenting and the whole woman collide to empower you in motherhood. And you, Jules? Over at julietenner.love is the online couples workshop experience. It's 12 dates that you join from the comfort of your bedroom or lounge room, cameras off, guided by me over a 12-month experience. So one date at the beginning of each month that inspires the support and the change that you can create in the rest of your month. So it's a set it and forget it healthcare system for your relationship. You can find out more at julietenner.love. Step number 3 is one also that most women tend to skim over or not include at all in their life, which is self-celebration and self-appreciation. That's such a big one, because we skim over that because we're always in this like place from, it's like that saying, like, I want to let the place in between where I am and where I'm going inspire me, not leave me in despair. But we've often taught ourselves to be in the despair of where we're not, which means that the tiny thing that we've achieved pales in comparison to the gap still in front of us. Instead of taking a moment to go, wow, look at like how far I've come, look at what worked today, look at like how my kids are and how they're thriving today, and look at this corner of my home that feels lush and beautiful, even though the rest of it's complete chaos. We don't do that very well. No, I don't think we do celebration very well. I think we're all a little bit messed up about celebration. Like, do you even, like, this was actually a learning for me. I had to learn how to celebrate because everything in me, particularly being a child of abuse and also the daughter of a yogi who excess birthdays, anniversaries, Christmas was abhorrent. So to celebrate and celebrate excessively and with utter, joy didn't exist as a blueprint for me. And in fact, I felt pretty like cringy about the whole situation, fairly indulgent. So I had to really repattern celebration and learn it. How do you celebrate? And also then celebrate my children, who also, the flow-on effect of me not celebrating myself is actually I didn't really sink into celebrate. Yeah, it's great. It's really good. And there's all this other stuff that you're not so flash at that we could get better at. Yeah, so quick. Because don't be so ego that you think you're so great, because there's all this other stuff too. Yeah. So don't get too big for your boots. Yeah, right. And such tall poppy syndrome, and the don't get too big for your boots, and don't be so ego. All of that stuff. Don't be so materialistic. So I had to really learn how to celebrate. I had to learn it. And what I have come to realize is that it is the language of the law of attraction. Yeah. Because what you celebrate and appreciate invites more of. Right. But in really doing that, you're going to get uncomfortable with all of those patterns. Right. Which most of us have to a degree, like whether it's your background, whether it's like what I know to be like depression era, scarcity that comes through my lineage. Yeah. There's never quite enough and just get what you're given. And you had a thing on, didn't you used to have a thing on presents? Like you're only allowed this, like a couple of presents or something? Yeah, it was very like, my mum had no toys, right? So there's a big leap that you go from like having no toys to giving your kids everything. So there's a lot of like, don't ask for too much. And
And so I can get really edgy and uncomfortable when I perceive my kids to want too much and to not appreciate what they've got.
Yeah. Like somehow celebration or more means you don't appreciate what you have.
Yeah. And I know that that's not true. Like it's something I've come with, but we will constantly meet the things we've come with. At every age and stage, we get to re-experience ourselves. So for you, like every time you're like coming up to a big celebration, it's like, oh gosh, this feels really unfit in my body. Like I don't know if I can be here. Like
my 40th, I told you this. My 40th was the first time I've had a birthday party.
Yeah.
Like that just celebrated me in the way that I wanted it celebrated.
But that you still really struggled to embody leading up to it. That you needed
was like, yeah.
I'll just arrive at it. Which I love, right? Because sometimes we have to really put those structures in place to help us integrate these things that feel elusive or difficult to grasp at.
Yeah, like even having a mother blessing, right?
Yes.
Anything with my first thought that was totally ridiculous and unworthy to do it because it was just baby number 2.
Yes.
And then baby number 3, I was like, fuck this, I am sovereign being. Let me celebrate that.
I'm taking up all the space. Yeah. And then it becomes something that you feel like is integrated and that you're literate in it. It's like, oh, well, why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah.
But it takes us so much edginess. So much like push and pull and discomfort as you go through the process of claiming that as your own.
Yeah, this is why, it's such a valuable conversation, I think, because it's very rare that we hear this part of the conversation is how self-celebration and self-appreciation is.
Yeah, because it's usually, just claim it. It's yours, abundant.
You're so worthy. I think you're amazing. And you're like, yeah. You don't really do it.
No.
So you've got to appreciate and celebrate and high-five yourself for the shit that's changed. And sometimes I think that's like going, wow, look at me go. Me 1 week ago, 1 month ago, 1 year ago would have handled that situation totally differently. Wow, look at me go.
Yeah.
Me 1 week ago, 1 month ago, 1 year ago wouldn't have been able to. Wow, look at me go. And when I go, oh God, I'm not earning enough. Okay, but what have you done? Where have you brought value?
Where is your wealth right now?
Yeah. Where have you contributed? Where have you saved the family money that actually is like earning money? Wow, look at everything you've done. Look at everything you do every day.
Yeah.
And when we're looking at that gap, also recognizing that if we don't spend the time to enjoy the path towards that gap, then we're not manifesting the thing on the end of that gap because what we focus on is the lack of that thing.
Yeah. And so that's just going to be constantly a reality.
Well, because what you focus on grows. So you're focusing on the gap and its absence of the thing you don't have yet. And the universe is the law of attraction. Law of attraction doesn't have a higher consciousness. It's just in a vibrational match. It's just like, oh, cool, that's what you want. Cool. Here you go.
Yeah.
Versus going, I want to sit in the joy of this and this and this. And they're like, more of that? Yeah, cool. Here you go. So for me, part of my financial, dramatic shift, I really am still reconciling that in my own body and lineage, has been celebration.
And in that celebration, you're then saying, stay here. Like, the energy, the energetic alignment is still like,
this is joyful. Yeah. This is joyful. And this is joyful. And this is joyful. So the end thing is coming when I stay in joy and is not coming when I stay in fuck the gap.
Yeah. Yeah. And, pick your area of life, right? The joy is coming when you appreciate that one little interaction and how much more healthy it was with your partner or your child.
Totally.
And it builds more healthy interactions.
Appreciation will save and change your relationship.
Yeah.
Most couples that I meet do not have an appreciation practice. It is not part of their language. And often I would say it's the women that do not appreciate the men. I know that sounds a little harsh, but often what happens is we get so like about all the shit that we're doing, and you somehow are like this passive idiot in the background. That when you do something, it's irritating to me, so I do not appreciate you. So all you get is it's wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong. You never get, man, that was so fucking right.
Yeah. You're making me think about dinner last night and how much I loved my husband come in and take over. I need to appreciate that. It's a great reminder, right? It's such a great reminder.
It is. Look, it is the starkest realization that I have the great privilege to witness across the board in relationship. And the beauty of when you do the work that lights your soul up is how inspiring it is for your life.
Yeah, because then you get those learnings and bring them in.
Right. So by virtue of the fact that I am starkly, because you can see everyone else's shit way clearer than you can see your own. So the fact that I can see that is also medicine for me.
Yeah. That's
so
the greatest.
Right, like how amazing is it when I can say, oh, okay, I'm seeing this in this call or human today. There's a part of me that's meant for too.
Yeah.
Because we're in a co-created relationship also by virtue of being in a coaching call. So appreciation and celebration, girlfriend, of yourself and your life and the moments that bring you joy will allow them to bring you more.
Beautiful.
So to connect with you, Bridgie, what have you got going on in the world?
Yes, Reimagining Motherhood membership. I have just a couple left of some bundles, which are 6 months in Reimagining Motherhood and 6 months of coaching with me. So you can find out more about that at bridgetwood.life. And you, Jules?
I have my 12 months of dates for couples in an online virtual experience with me. So it's 12 dates, one a month, that you two show up for to have a private experience, just the two of you, but guided with practices and questions by me that you otherwise would probably never get to or make the time for. So let's make some epic connection. You've got my support if there's any glitches, and you can find out more at julietenner.love.
Beautiful. Remember to nourish the woman to rock the family.
And we'll see you next week when we continue to peel back the layers on your mothering journey.
Thank you so much for listening. We literally couldn't do this without you. Please share this podcast with anyone you think it would be medicine for.
If you desire to integrate your learnings practically and supportively into your life, then head on over to bridgetwood.life or julietenner.love to go deeper.
And if you feel like giving back a little to this free content, please rate us on iTunes or Facebook, all of which helps the podcast reach more mamas who need this type of tonic for the soul.